What is up, guys? It's your boy Rick Kakis, and today we are going to be showcasing a guide for how to beat the currently featured Rite of the Nine dungeon, the Spire of the Watcher, on the maximum Ultimatum difficulty as fast and easy as possible, so you can start to get that max rarity Adept Rite of the Nine weapon drops. And so, let's get started. And first off, let's take a look at some of the modifiers Ultimatum difficulty comes with that you need to know about. First of all, there's Ultimatum mode. So similar to Eternity difficulty, the more you die in an encounter, that's going to affect the quality of your loot, so survivability is very important. Another one you want to know about is not swap. So if you think you're going to swap to a certain exotic to improve your damage, switch to Cuirass to get more damage from your Thunder Crash, yeah, it's going to reset a lot of your abilities if you do that, so you don't want to be doing that. You also have various enemy modifiers right here, nothing too crazy, but just expect enemies to be harder than normal. Now, as for the actual encounters, importantly, this guide is not going to be focusing too much on the base mechanics of the Spire of the Watcher dungeon because it's been around so long. The mechanics aren't too drastically changed. When they are changed, we will talk about them. And also, you can now go into the Explorer difficulty and it will tell you exactly what to do in terms of the mechanics. You can learn the dungeon that way and then crank it up to Ultimatum mode. So for this first opening encounter, guys, yes, it's actually an encounter in Ultimatum mode. On Explorer, you actually don't get loot for this part, but you do on Ultimatum difficulty. You are going to have a bunch of ads spawning in this kind of Old Westy type town while you are rained down upon from these Cyclopses. Guys, the number one tip here, the number one thing you want to be doing is killing these Cyclopses as fast as possible, because on Ultimatum difficulty, they can one-shot you. So stuff like sniper rifles, specifically the new Land Beyond exotic sniper rifle, if you did get that pre-order bonus, if you want to know what it's all about, definitely check out the video linked right up above, but that thing cranks with one single shot. Even on Ultimatum difficulty, you can kill these Cyclopses, and that's going to make things very easy. But, linear fusion rifles or other sniper rifles are going to be great for this as well. Now, aside from that, it's pretty standard ad clearing for the most part until once you connect all of the different wires. Now, to be able to complete a wire, you simply need to kill one of the Conduit Minotaurs, and they drop the Arctrician buff that you walk over, and then you simply need to shoot the nodes in the correct order on the wire until eventually you get to the end. You are then going to have a massive Hydra boss spawn. Now, importantly, guys, at the same time, more Cyclopses are going to spawn, so deal with those guys first before you start DPSing the boss. And in terms of DPSing the boss, honestly, linear fusion rifles are fantastic, especially the Queenbreaker exotic linear. If you have its catalyst, you can put on the seasonal artifact mod that will cause its shots to weaken enemies as well, and you'll be able to kill this guy in no time. Specifically, you want to be DPSing from up on the rooftops, like you can see in the background gameplay. That way you can easily step back and get out of the line of fire of this boss, and then step forward again to take your shots. Moving on from there, guys, we have a big traversal section. Now, keep in mind, on the higher difficulties, you will still have revive tokens for these sections. Now, nothing is really at stake other than the fact that you might have to restart from a checkpoint and do these traversal sections again. So you have two options. You can take it slow and kill enemies as a team together as you move forward, or you can just put on eager edge swords and dash ahead past all these enemies as quickly as possible. One person can also do that and then drag everyone to the next encounter via joining allies. Just be prepared to wipe to refresh ammo if you do that. Now, moving on from there to the second encounter, guys. So once again, you are connecting wires, but this time you have two very long routes of wires, and when you hook both of them up, you will unlock the ability to go up to the next platform essentially. However, although most of the ad spawns are going to be normal, you will get some pretty big yellow bar hydras off in the distance, and there's now going to be kind of a mini boss fight before it lets you up to that higher platform. Whereas on the lower difficulties, there's no boss fights. You just connect the wires and go right up. So you are going to need to have weaponry to deal with these guys. Specifically, once again, you need ranged weaponry because they are literally off, the spire in the distance floating in the air. You can't get to them with a lot of weapons. So again, the new Land Beyond was fantastic. But any good sniper rifle would be great. Linear fusion rifles like the Queenbreaker and even something like the Sleeper Simulant would be fantastic here. And even ranged supers I was using for one of the runs, a Geomeg's Chaos Reach Warlock, and that super was able to reach out and get these higher tier enemies off in the distance. So keep that in mind as well, guys. Now, as for some tips for good locations to do your damage, first of all, when you're going up that first level, go back here, put down like a Titan Rally barricade, and everything will be in front of you. You're good to go. Then on the second level, you actually have multiple of those like mini boss hydras, and the place where you're going up to the upper level once you've connected the nodes is actually kind of out in the open. As you can see, you might want to jump back and get some distance between you and those enemies because they can really rain down some fire on you. Specifically, guys, having something like a well or even a rift, a little bit of healing, and again, like a Storm's Keep Titan barricade to DPS from behind while getting that damage mitigation. Super important here because, again, often you are going to be pretty out in the open when you're getting pounded by these enemies before you're going up to the next level. And then for the final level, guys, you're going to have this massive like Minotaur boss here. So thankfully, he doesn't move around too much. He's kind of had on one like small platform. You can DPS from where you're seeing in the background gameplay, but his crit is a little bit difficult to hit. It really isn't too hard though. Moving on from there, we get to the first real like boss fight encounter, guys. And here we finally have a significant mechanical change compared to the normal Spire of the Watcher. So once again, you guessed it, you are lighting up these wires and connecting nodes. However, above each of the 4 initial nodes where you need to start connecting that wire, there's actually a symbol. And then above all of that, you see floating in the air 4 symbols. This is actually the order that you need to connect these wires. So with this example from my gameplay, the top symbol is a diamond, underneath that is a pyramid, then it's a square, and then another pyramid. So your team needs to look around at the starts of the wires, like right below those floating symbols, find the diamond one, and do that first. That one needs to be completed, and then either one of the pyramids need to be completed. So sometimes you will have like a diamond and 3 pyramids, right? And then you're just kind of lucky. As long as you do the diamond first, you can do whatever 3 in whatever other order. But again, whatever you choose, you still need to do a pyramid next. Then it has to be the square, and that means you need to end on a pyramid. Now, if you mess things up, if you accidentally, shoot one first, you had a miscommunication with your teammate, he was like, wait a minute, I wasn't done, you are actually then going to get a timer on your screen. Essentially, you have just a little bit of time left to finish all of the different nodes. As long as you can still complete all the circuits within this timer, it will start a DPS phase. But again, you'd rather avoid that, so do the wires in the order they are shown. Now, a tip for doing this part, guys, I would recommend using a weapon with some range. This encounter is very wide in the open, and there's going to be harpies like floating in the distance, and they're all going to be picking away at your health. I was using the new Sundered Doctrine Dungeon Scout Rifle. I absolutely love this thing, and even on Ultimatum Difficulty, it was cranking, and it lets you, you go and do your wire. You're on one side of this tower here, you're off on the edge, you can use your scout rifle to pick away at a bunch of enemies that are maybe attacking your teammate, and it gives you the range you want for this encounter. But moving on from there, guys, to the actual damage phase. This is a bit of an interesting one. So what's going to happen is wherever you connect that last wire, that is where damage is going to take place. The boss is going to come right up to you, and then it's going to open up and have a bunch of little eyes you need to shoot. So generally, you want to be using your primary weapon here, not wasting ammo. You destroy all those eyes, and then the boss will become available for actual DPS. And at this point, the boss will slowly start backing away from you. So, a huge tip here, if you have DPS supers like a Thunder Crash, you'll actually see that I use it immediately. Normally, you might end with a Thunder Crash, but because the boss is getting further and further away, you want to start with your Thunder Crashes and other DPS supers, and then you want to set up in a well, if possible, for extra DPS behind a Storm's Keep barricade and use long-range weaponry to damage this boss as they move further away. Now, some people like to walk forward as they DPS, but you're going to walk out of your well, you're going to walk out of your Storm's Keep, you're giving up a lot of DPS options to move forward with this boss. So I would recommend using stuff like, again, those high DPS linear fusion rifles. You'll see that we did some great damage with the Queenbreaker right here. Yes, when the boss is very far away, it can be a bit difficult to land your shots, but there actually is no damage fall off. I was getting the same damage when the boss was right in front of me as when the boss is in the middle of the arena here with the Queenbreaker. So it's not far enough away that you're going to be doing less damage. Again, it's just harder to hit your shots. Another big suggestion is the Sleeper Simulant. This thing absolutely cranks, and we were actually able to get a 2-phase kill with all 3 Sleeper Simulants, guys. Now, there is an argument for having 2 people using linear fusion rifles like Queenbreakers and the other person utilizing a Divinity just to make crits easy, but honestly, I don't think that's really necessary because it's going to be really easy to hit this boss until like the last little bit of the damage phase. Then you're going to have to really kind of aim your shots, but overall, you want to be using a cracked linear fusion rifle combined with that particle reconstruction seasonal artifact perk for the weaken effect. You want to be, again, in a well behind a Storm's Keep barricade, and also remember to squeeze every bit of damage out of your build. So putting on triple surges on your legs, matching the element of your weapon. Also loader mods, so you can reload your DPS weapon faster to do even more damage. All of that stuff is going to matter because you can get a pretty crispy 2-phase. Guys, moving on from there, we have another traversal section where you're going to an area, killing adds while completing as many wires as are required. Then you go through a bunch of spinning fan blades. Not a fan of that part, but you're going to really just want to hop into these crevices. There's going to be indents in the wall that will allow you to just squeeze through and avoid the fan blades, as you can see in the background gameplay. But after doing all that, you do have a mini encounter here where you have a big Hydra that spawns in the middle of this arena. There's actually arcing electricity all around the Hydra, so it's kind of hard to get right into that Hydra or go through the middle once you've killed the Hydra. But you want to take down that Hydra and also be very aware of the multitude of adds that spawn as well as you're making these final wire connections, guys. And honestly, the tip is just kill the adds first, kill the Hydra first before you're making all the wire connections if you're having trouble. But then you're finally going to get to the final boss fight. And this is what is giving a lot of people trouble right now. So when you start this encounter, 2 mini-boss Hydras are going to spawn on either side of the arena, and you want to take those out as quickly as possible. However, one of them will get additional add spawns. Mainly you have Supplicants. These explosive harpies are going to be causing problems through the entire encounter. But as this is happening, the boss is also going to be walking through the door into your part of the arena, and then you have a completely immune, invincible boss nuking you with damage and following you around for the entire encounter. Again, a huge problem. Let's talk about how to counter, frankly, both of these things. Starting with the boss. So, just being spatially aware of the boss is huge. If the boss is walking up to your side of the arena, just leave. Like, honestly, just get out of there. You have unlimited time, so you don't want to be, pitched fighting behind a barricade, trying your best while you're being shot at by the boss to do one more node connection. Why? Just leave. The boss will be baited by the location of your team, so if everyone goes to the other side, the boss will go there. Everyone can then go back to the original side, and the boss won't be there. So baiting and kiting the boss around and simply avoiding where he is absolutely the play. On top of that, guys, you want to make sure on your chest piece you have a void damage resistance as well as a concussive dampener that will mitigate a lot of the damage coming from the boss's attacks. Now, as for the supplicants, again, you got a lot of them. Being spatially aware is again important because they will just come up behind you and explode if you're not paying attention. But what we really found to be effective is going to be those rocket sidearms. The Tenacious Mastery will also have the added effect of causing a slow effect, so they can kind of charge you less effectively. I was also using the Indebted Kindness for the Volt Shot effect, but one single shot usually was enough to kill these supplicants, and that was very advantageous. Another thing I want to recommend is area denial grenades. You can see here, like, there's pretty limited spawns for these ads. If I'm throwing a pulse grenade, I'm just nuking every ad that's spawning in this limited area. But as for the mechanics, we again have some changes with the Rite of the Nine Ultimatum mode and the original Spire of the Watcher dungeon. So initially, guys, after killing the 2 Hydras, the Minotaurs are going to spawn that drop the buff that you need to power up the nodes, and then you need to open back up the door that connects the other half of the arena that the boss originally came through. It closed behind him. So you shoot those different nodes to open up that door, and then you need to make 2 wire connections. In the original version of this dungeon, you had to connect all 4 wires, but now, once again, you have floating symbols. So in this example right here, we have a diamond and then below it is a square. So that means you need to connect the diamond wire first and then the square wire. Now, unlike the last boss fight where if you messed up, you had a little bit of time to complete it, this one you just wipe. So you need to connect the correct wires in order. You will see that only 2 out of the 4 nodes are open and the symbols will be right next to them. So it's pretty easy to tell, which wires you need to connect. You just look at the floating symbols and then look at the wires, the nodes that are opened up displaying those symbols. Now, importantly, usually you're going to have, one on the left and one on the right of the arena, but sometimes they're both on one side of the arena. So just be aware of that, guys. But at this point, it's just making those wire connections and successfully baiting the boss into the 2 different, areas of this arena to avoid you while you're trying to make those completions. However, before you make the final wire completion, you need to ensure that the boss has moved into that back room, as you can see. When he has, then make that completion. You'll see that the boot sequence is starting, and then you want to move out of that back area into the original area of this arena, and then you need to kill a Minotaur quickly, get the buff, and shoot 5 different nodes, and the order is going to be random. You're going to see us do it in the background gameplay to close the door and essentially trap the boss behind that door for this boot sequence, and then eventually when that is done, the door is going to open up and finally we have our DPS phase. Now, DPS here is very tight, and you have to do it in a 3-phase because there is an enrage mechanic. Now, a 2-phase is possible, but again, it's extremely tight. So First of all, guys, again, it's going to be using a well, using especially a Titan Rally Barricade. The boss is going to start, in the back, but then walk towards you. And so it is going to be attacking you, shooting you the entire time, and it's going to get right on top of you. So actually, if you have two Titans, you kind of want to stagger the barricades. That's the best luck we had with surviving, because if you don't have a barricade also giving you that additional damage resistance, you can easily die in the well or have the well just blown up by the boss, guys. Also, one Titan can do this. I was using the Heart of Inmost Light, and because I would get a grenade throw in the middle at the boss, it would recharge my barricade, so I would have one barricade and then another one ready to go before that first one wore out, so we were able to be in a well behind the barricade for more damage resistance to stay alive, guys. But also, utilizing cover, you can see that we're kind of damaging him near this big piece of wall, and that's so that we can dip behind it and dip back out to avoid some of the incoming damage. That's another big part of DPS here. Now, in terms of what you're actually using, guys, to do damage, well, we again had luck with linear fusion rifles. The Queenbreaker is a great option, either all three people using Queenbreaker, but there's a problem with that, and that is the fact that this boss does move around and his crit is pretty small and pretty unforgiving, as you can see. We did get completions with all three people using Queenbreaker, but it might be easier to have one people using a Divinity to cause that crit bubble and make it way easier for the other two people to land their crits than having to aim for the small crit on his chest. Now, another fantastic option here, guys, that we were so unbelievably close to getting a two-phase, two-phase is 100% possible, is the Sleeper Simulant. The Sleeper Simulant does so much damage for a body shot, it means that all three people can use Sleeper, and if you get a crit, it does like 100,000 damage. It's crazy. But if you miss your crit, it's still doing like 80,000 damage, so it's not that big of a downside. And again, so that is a fantastic option for DPS, just absolutely chunking him, the Sleeper Simulant is. But there's also the route of not depending on the crit. So you have rocket launchers. Specifically, you would have one person with the Galahorn and then two people using the Hezen Vengeance, the new version that came out within episode Heresy. That does a crazy amount of damage. However, guys, there is a problem with that, and that is if you're not very on top of it, the boss will be on top of you, and that's when you don't want to be using rocket launchers, right? You're going to blow yourself up. That is a risk. You can also just kind of walk back and kind of kite the boss around the piece of cover, like I said. But, rocket launchers, again, it is an option, but it's not what we personally preferred. Another option that I've heard is very good is actually just the 1000 voices. Again, it doesn't rely on crit damage, and it's going to cause a lot of stagger. Causing stagger to this boss is very important in making him delay getting up to you. So even something like the Warlock utilizing the Hellion aspect to just cause a bit more ignition explosions to get those staggers on the boss is pretty darn good. Now again, if you are using linears, they come with their own built-in weaken effect, right, because of particle reconstruction. But if you're not, you're gonna have to have a hunter with tether or smoke grenades, or just another way to get that weaken effect on the boss for increased damage. And hopefully you can do enough damage to take this boss down, and then when you do, you have 2 reward chests if you get gold tier. Except for the fact that we also got 2 chests for getting silver tier. Honestly, guys, I have not really noticed a big difference between silver and gold tier in terms of the loot quality. I have gotten double perk adepts from silver tier drops, pretty consistently, as well as gold tier. So honestly, in my opinion, I wouldn't be stressing too much about, gold and silver tier. Like if you drop down to silver and you have the boss hurt already, I wouldn't really restart. Just tough it out, and frankly, rewards are not going to be that different. Guys, That is it for the video. Hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKakis. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.